Welcome to the Nerdstalgic podcast with your host, the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm.
Howdy beans, and welcome back to the Nerdstalgic podcast. I'm your host, Luke the Human. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're all good, as per usual. Before we get into today's topic, I want to do a bit of housekeeping because I like to keep my house nice and clean. So, if you could do three things for me right at the beginning of the episode, I'll be eternally grateful. Number one, make sure you follow me on Twitter at nerdstalgic_pod to be kept up to date on everything and anything that I'm doing, watching, reading, and all that jazz. Number two, if you're listening to this on YouTube, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, leaving a like and a comment is absolutely incredible to me and it means a lot. And finally, if you listen to this on your phone, on Spotify, please leave a rating from 1 to 5 stars. And if you do all those things right at the beginning, I will be eternally grateful. Thank you very, very much. Also, I just want to say thank you to everybody who's currently listening. I'm halfway through my third year of podcasting, and I just want to say a huge thank you to everybody who's stuck with me so far, who's stuck with the podcast, who has followed me on Spotify, for people who have joined on through YouTube, people who followed me on Twitter, just everybody who listens every week, who tunes into every episode or every other episode, because I know not every episode is going to be for everybody. I just want to say thank you. It means a lot to me. I do notice people, and I appreciate all of you. I just want to say thank you right off the top of just supporting me. It means a lot. It really, really does. So again, thank you ever so much. So today's topic, we're going to be talking about Doctor Who: The Price of Paradise, the 12th book so far in this journey of mine, but it is the last book in the 10th Doctor and Rose series. After this book, then you'd have the finale of series 2, and then Rose gets sucked into another dimension, and the 10th Doctor is on his own. Then he meets Donna, then he meets Martha, and sort of his adventures continue from there. So this is what we're going to be talking about today. But before, again, we get properly into that, a few things I want to do. First of all, once again, I want to say thank you to everybody who listened to my last episode. I'm just on YouTube now. My Art of Destruction episode. For everybody who listened to it and liked it and supported it, I'm lost for words of how successful that episode was. As of now, recording this on the 22nd of June, and looking at my sort of analytics on YouTube, for example, it is my most successful book review ever. Not just successful Doctor Who thing ever, it's my most successful book review ever. 103 people listened to it on YouTube. And if you're one of those people, thank you very, very much. And I hope that this episode sort of breaks that record as well. Also, I want to do a bit of an update on sort of my Doctor Who adventures so far. Again, when I recorded that review, Art of Destruction, I hadn't since gotten around to watching the new series yet with Shutigawa, because again, it didn't exist. It wasn't out yet. So I didn't have any opinions on it then. I'm not going to go into it completely. Like, you know, it's finished. Well, technically, it finishes tonight, but I watched it midnight, Friday night, Saturday morning-ish, technically. And I'm not going to give my full impressions here. That would be a separate episode if I ever got around to doing it, because I'm a very busy bee. But so the long and short of it is that I enjoy Shutigawa. I really, really like him. He's grown on me. I think he's quite interesting, quite fascinating, and I look forward to seeing where he goes. Millie Gibson as Ruby. I like the actress. I think she's a fantastic actress. But the one of my biggest issues so far with this series is that they're trying to make me care about somebody before they've given me a reason to care about them, if that makes sense to anybody. That's kind of the biggest issue I have, is the fact that they want me to care, they want me to get emotional, they want me to get sad over a character that I've just met. and it's kind of difficult. I find it easy to get upset and relate to the Doctor, even if it's a new Doctor with a new face and a new feelings and emotions. I can usually quite quickly, because I already know what the Doctor stands for, I can quickly sort of latch onto the Doctor and get emotional with the Doctor. With a companion, it's a bit difficult. You've got to give either a lot of context, a lot of reasoning, or you've got to build up to that emotion. And with all this emotional beats that they're trying to play off with Ruby's character, it's just not working for me, and I'm not getting emotional, and I'm not getting invested, which is a shame because Millie Gibson, she's a fantastic actress, and she plays the role of Ruby really, really good, and she's a fantastic and fascinating with the whole plot and the twist that comes with her. As a character and a companion, it's all really, really good. It's just we're not given enough with her, which is a shame. Again, another thing I wanted to mention, Russell T Davies. I'm glad he's back. I really like Russell T Davies. He's a mega fan like you and like myself. But the issue being is the fact of he's writing every single episode of this series, and it shows. And I won't go into detail as to why, because again, that'd be a whole separate series and talk anyway. I just feel like for next season, he needs to get some new blood in. He needs to branch out. He needs to get more writers in. Other people, not just sort of Stephen Moffat. He needs to get other people in to write a lot of these episodes, because he did the bulk of the episodes in this series, and it showed. And I just feel like they need some fresh blood in. Bring the writers in. Bring the people who writ the books, because majority of them, like Jacqueline Rayner, for example, she's a fantastic author, one of my favorites. They have a lot of them have already done Big Finish, so they already know the structure of how to write a Doctor Who story, whether it be for audio or for the page. So they already know what they're doing. So giving them an opportunity to write episodes, bring them in, would be fantastic as well to see. So that's kind of the long and short of it. Like I said, I've got a lot more to say, and I've got a lot more emotions, and I like some episodes and didn't like others and all that jazz. But ultimately, I find this new series, this new sort of revival, whatever they are calling it, it's all right. It's okay. It's not epic. It's not as grand as they were hoping for. I would much rather, if I'm being honest, watch the 14th Doctor's free specials, The Giggle, Wild Blue Yonder, and the last one, which I always forget what the last one's called. Star Beast. I love this. How did I forget the Star Beast? Beat the Meat. He was my favorite. I'm so glad they brought Beat the Meat back. I want to see Beat because he's still around. But yeah, I would still rather watch the specials, to be honest. I'd rather. It's not just the 14th Doctor. It's not just David Tennant. It's just the fact that they just seemed a lot more fun. And maybe because they were 3 episodes and not 8 episodes, that they were more condensed and easier. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, that's the long and short of it. This new series, it's all right. It's okay. Yeah, maybe if I have some time, I will sit down and rewatch and review this series. But I've got series 2 with the Doctor and Rose to do after this, and then I want to look back at the classic Doctors, so I've got all them. So it will probably be a long time before I get to Shooty's era. But when I do, I'm sure I will talk about it, and I'll sort of reflect on my feelings now till then, all that jazz. Finally, before we get into sort of my first impressions of the book, Big Finish audios. So I've listened to 2 since finishing the last book, The Art of Destruction. I did Doctor Who Colditz, which is absolutely incredible. It's by Stephen Lynes. He's written a few of the Doctor Who novels that I've read and reviewed here for the show. This is incredible, right? So in October 1944, as World War II draws towards its conclusion, a Nazi defeat begins to seem almost inevitable. But that might be about to change. 2 intruders are captured in the grounds of Colditz Castle, the most secure POW camp in Germany. At first, the guards think they're dealing with British spies, but then the strangers arrive in an advanced travelling machine, the likes of which they've never seen before. With this TARDIS in their hands, the Third Reich might triumph after all. It's an incredible story. It's hard-hitting, it's dark, it's brutal. It has Sylvester McCoy in it. It has Sophie Aldridge in it as Ace. It's just outstanding. Like, I've got no words for it. Like, listen to it, you will just devour it. Like, one thing I love about Sylvester McCoy his Doctor, the Seventh Doctor, is that every story that he has in Big Finish so far that I've experienced has had such dark undertones. It gets me so excited to finally sit down and watch some of these episodes, just to kind of take in what kind of Doctor he really is on screen compared to how he is in Big Finish. So that's got me excited. And also, a nice little bit of trivia for anybody. David Tennant is in this. This is actually, this audio drama was his first introduction to anything Doctor Who. It was his first character. It was his first, even before Screams of Shulkra. This is what he did first. He played an SS general, and he plays it so well. He plays the role so devilishly and so evil that at first you're like, that's David Tennant, and then he quickly sort of chameleons into the role, and you're like, that's not David Tennant. That's not the voice and the Doctor that I know. That's somebody else, and he plays it so well. He's such a chameleon. So Doctor Who Cold, it's highly recommend it. I gave that a 5 stars out of 5 stars. It was that good. The next one, I had a bit of an issue with this one. It was Doctor Who Primeval. This one is Narcissa will die at dawn, and the Doctor doesn't even know why. To save her life, he must make a desperate journey to the only place in the universe where a cure might exist. When even that fails, the Doctor has a choice. Let Narcissa die or make a deal with the devil. After all, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. This story, I had the issue. I gave it 3 stars, and the reason I gave it 3 stars is the fact of it felt like I needed a lot of homework to understand what was going on here in this story. It felt like I needed to have watched a lot of Narcissa and the Fifth Doctor stories together, and to do my homework to really understand a lot of things. I enjoyed it for what it was, but there was just so many moments you could tell that there was things I needed to know, and if I didn't, I would get lost, and I did. And that's the only real downside I have about this story, is that if you're not caught up on those episodes and those series with them two together, you're just going to be lost. And it's a shame because when I've listened to other Big Finish adventures, I've never felt like I need to do homework. I just felt like this is a new adventure, and it might be some familiar characters, familiar Doctor, but I don't feel like I need to do any homework. This one I did, and that's the only issue I had with it, is the fact of maybe I would have enjoyed it a lot more if I knew some of the sort of things that needed to be known. I'm trying to be vague in terms of, I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but if I knew certain things, would I have enjoyed it more? Possibly. But as I don't, I've got to rate it for what it is, and for what it is and what it does. It's a shame. But overall, 3 stars, not bad. It's good, but I feel like you needed to do your homework to really sort of appreciate it. And that's sort of it so far in terms of my Big Finish adventure. I'm still going. I'm still getting through, and I the more of those that I do, and the more of them that I listen to. Sorry, the more inclined and excited I am for thinking, you know what? Once I get to 50, I'm going to do a huge long form episode on the podcast of just breaking down every single episode. Maybe I'll do it in chunks of like 5 or 10 to really break it down, or maybe I'll do it a per Doctor basis. I haven't decided yet, but the more I go through them, the more I'm like, once I get to the 50 mark, I'm just going to do a big episode or few on Big Finish, because they're that good and they're that enjoyable. I'm having such a fantastic time that I need to talk about them, and I need to release them in more longer forms than just doing it here at the beginning of like these sort of episodes. But yeah, anyway, moving on to sort of my first impressions of Doctor Who: The Price of Paradise. But before I want to get into that, I want to read you the blurb. So, Laylora, the Paradise Planet, a world of breathtaking beauty where peace-loving Aboriginals live in harmony with their environment. Or do they? The Doctor and Rose arrive to find that the once perfect ecosystem is showing signs of failing. The Paradise Planet has become a death trap as terrifying creatures from ancient legends appear and stalk the land. Is there a connection between the human explorers who have crash landed and the savage monsters? What secret lies at the heart of the natives' ancient ceremonies? And what price might one human have to pay to save the only home he has ever known? When a planet itself becomes sick, can there be a cure? The Doctor and Rose find themselves in a race against time to find out. The Price of Paradise. Now, I'll be honest with you, because I know what you're thinking, because I thought it too. That basically sounds like Avatar. It sounds like Fern Gully, and it does. More well. In all fairness, let's be honest with us. More than likely, because this book was published on the 21st of September 2006, Avatar wasn't out yet, so I can't say, oh, it copied Avatar. I can't. More than likely, you could say it took inspiration from Fern Gully and movies like that. Because that was the predecessor that came first before, obviously, this book. But that is kind of leading to my first impressions, is that I'm loving it so far. One thing that I loved about the last book, The Art of Destruction, was that the Vernaxi, I think they were called, the creatures that were in that book, they were able to create some of the universe's most beautiful and gorgeous and wonderful pieces of art. And the reason they were able to do that, because they were in touch with their planet. Their planet was alive, and that they were able to have such a sort of integral connection to the planet that afterwards they were able to transcend the medium of life, and to kind of convey that into art through paintings and sculptures and jewelry and things like that. And I just love the idea that in 2 books we have had the idea and concept of a living planet, not just sort of like all planets, have some sort of life in the universe, whether it be microbial life, or it be abundant like Earth. And I'm sure the universe is full of life, even though we haven't properly found it. I'm sure the life is everywhere. But I just love the concept of a planet that, like Awa from Avatar, like the idea that Mother Nature is real, that she exists, that the planet is alive, in like Fern Gully, and books like The Art of Destruction and this one. It's the idea that the planet is breathing, and that if you are in connection with the planet, and if you're in connection with nature, then that will make you sort of peace of mind, and that you will be a peaceful society, and that the planet will prosper and be forever like a paradise. And I love that idea. And as we go through the story, I'm only, let's have a look, hold on. I think I'm about 60 or so pages in. 68, sorry. 68 pages in. So I'm not that far. But how far I've got in, it's incredible, because there's these legends. Because sorry, well, let me build up, because I'm getting really excited already. So there's these Aboriginal sort of tribal people that, like sort of the Nave, like the fairies and Ferngully, they're very much in touch with their environment, with nature. And it's a beautiful connection that they have. And there are legends about these monsters that whenever the planet is in danger, or something happens where somebody comes to the planet, or a creature, or anything like that, anything where the planet and the environment is in danger, the planet basically sends out these monsters, these creatures, these big, hairy monsters with long, sharp claws that basically come in and eradicate the disturbance. And once the disturbance is gone, these creatures then fade back into the world, fade back into the earth, basically. And that the people, the villagers, are now safe to continue to live and prosper. And that every time there's a hurricane, every time there's a storm, earthquake, anything like that, they instantly take the Lelora, who they actually, that's the name, not just the name of the planet, that's the name of their god as well, because they sort of worship the planet as a god. Is, oh, Lelora, she's angry. We need to sacrifice. We need to kind of do something to make her happy again. And it's the same as of a lot of tribes, with the Aztecs and the Maya, and all kinds of ancient tribes throughout human history. They're all pretty much the same. And all of that incredibly fascinates me. Just the idea, like, the planet isn't just a planet. The planet is alive, because again, all planets are technically alive. I'm sure here on Earth, if that, not to kind of get into it too much, because I am quite of a hippy dippy sort of bloke. I'm sure that if humans were able to touch grass. Basically, touch a lot more, and I mean literally touch grass. I'm not on about like the meme, like the joke. I'm like generally, if a lot of people would just touch grass, go out to nature, hug a tree, you know, um, get out of cities, that sort of thing, and actually see the greenery that's actually around them instead of looking at the phones or looking at the street or whatever. Um, then I feel like in that case, people would be more inclined to be a lot more peaceful, a lot more calming, and then I think we'd realize, oh, we're actually doing a lot of harm to the planet. We might want to do less harm and then come more connected with our planet. And again, who knows? If we become more connected to our planet, we will start like the Vanaxi in the last story. They will. We will make beautiful art and music because we're peaceful and we're in harmony. Because there were a lot of tribes in the past that were like that were very peaceful, that were very nature sort of focused, and that they made some beautiful art and beautiful poetry, and they had their beautiful moments as well. But again, they're still human, they're still fallible. They still had moments of sort of brutality, in terms of human sacrifice and things like that. But when things were peaceful, it was peaceful, and it was clean and respectable, and it was wonderful. And that is sort of all of that. Again, like if you ever listen to any of my reviews that I've done on Studio Ghibli, for example, you know how much I feel about these things. So already the idea from reading the blurb of this book already has got me sort of enraptured and has pulled me in to the story and to the concept of a living planet, of these people, of these villagers living on this planet or worshipping this planet like a god, and that the doctor is responding to a distress signal because from a crashed ship, and it's that sort of unraveling that mystery of like, well, why is this ship? Why did they crash land? Is it because they've crash landed is the reason why the planet's upset, or is it something else? And why is the planet dying? And why certain characters are there when they shouldn't be there, they don't belong there. And again, I don't want to go into spoilers, because again, I always want people to read these books with me, as well as me just telling people what I think. But yeah, I was already sort of sold on the idea of sort of this perfect ecosystem, this perfect paradise. Again, the idea behind the price of paradise. What is the price of paradise? What do you have to sacrifice to get quote unquote paradise? So yeah, my first impressions are incredibly positive. And this book, sorry, I didn't get to mention it, was actually written by Colin Brake, who I'm just having a look. I actually haven't read anything by him yet. I haven't listened to anything he's done. He's done Big Finish. He's done other sort of books as well as Doctor Who. And I'm just looking through. I actually haven't read anything from him. So this would be my first sort of introduction to him as a writer. And so far, I love it. I'm interested. I really, really am. Yeah, I'm just excited to see where this goes from here. So yeah, that's my first impressions. That is the introduction. There's not really much more to say. Thank you for listening to me ramble for this introduction. I'm going to go off now and finish this wonderful book. And who knows, maybe my sort of feelings might change when I get to the actual review part. I might find that this book is terrible, or I might find that they went too far with the eco stuff and it got a bit bland and boring. Who knows? More than likely, I think I probably will enjoy it. If I'm being honest, I generally think I will enjoy what's coming so far, because I just think I will. But that's Doctor Who. It's an exciting adventure. You never know where you're going with the Doctor. You never know what's going to happen next. And to be honest, so far from my experience with it and my first impressions, that if this is going to be sort of the last adventure, the last sort of hoorah before things start getting a bit bad and sort of sad, and because it does in the end of series 2, it does get a bit sad, and with what happened to Rose and that sort of thing. So if this is going to be like the last adventure with them two together, where they're happy and things are going okay, that's what I'm hoping for. That's what I hope for. That's what I'm got my fingers crossed for. If it isn't, it isn't. But so far, I'm really, really enjoying it. It seems generally like a 4 to 5 stars at the moment, but I don't want to jump to a conclusion. I really, really don't. I try to go into these things as empty as possible and just fill up my cup until I get to the very end and I'm full. Then I like to make my full sort of impressions. So until then, we're going to have to wait. Well, I have to. You won't have to wait because in a few seconds you're going to hear what I thought. So lucky you. And I will see you all in a mo. Right. So I've not long finished The Price of Paradise. And my first impressions are, and I hate to say it, I hate to do it because it's the last book in this sort of series of Ten and Rose. After this, obviously, she goes off to another dimension, and then the Doctor goes off and he meets Martha. And so I hate to do it, but this book was really middle of the road for me. I wanted to love it. I wanted to kind of give this author a go. I wanted to give Colin Brake, sorry, a go. I wanted to like really sort of pioneer and be, oh, he's actually pretty good for like the first one I read, but it was very middle of the road. Like it wasn't bad. It's just not much stood out to me. You know, it's a good adventure with a lot to offer, but not enough spectacle. And I think the reason for that, to be honest, is that as I mentioned in the introduction, everything is there for me to be interested. You've got the environmental side of it. You've got the idea that Leilora, this planet, is alive, and that the ecosystem sort of is used as a defense mechanism. So anything that comes down into the planet that could potentially harm the planet, it would, as a defense mechanism, it would have the Whitaker, which were these creatures that would come out and would destroy or kill or whatever and get rid of whatever this infection was in this planet. And so it already had the idea and the concept, and everything was there for me. What lost me was the fact the 10th Doctor didn't feel like the 10th Doctor. There were spurts and moments where I would read it, I could hear sort of David Tennant's voice, but then other moments, and it was majority of the moments really, where you would, well, to be honest, you could fit any Doctor in. Any Doctor you wanted to, from Hartnell all the way to like Paul McGann, you could fit any of the Doctors in. And you would be like, yeah, this is a 5th Doctor story. It's a 4th Doctor story. It's a 12th, 13th Doctor story. You know, there's only small moments here and there where you felt like, oh, that's David Tennant. And I've never really had that issue with any of the books so far. Every time I've gone in, I can be like, look, this feels like something the 10th Doctor would do or say, you know, because it's odd. Everybody else is on point. Rose is done perfectly here. All the other characters are done really, really well and interesting. Everything about this story, like I said, was there for the pickings, was there to pull me in, but it didn't. Like I said, it's not bad. If anything, I would give it a 3 star. A 3 star, you know, the way I rank things for anybody who doesn't know, 5 stars is absolutely change your life, perfect, excellent, one of like the best books. Everybody should read it. A 4 star is pretty great, is pretty fantastic. A 3 star can be good. And it can be good. Some things were better than others, but overall in the middle of the road. Or sometimes it could be just good, nothing more, nothing less. And then a 2 star is a meh, something like, oh, you read, but it's very meh, very sort of bland and terrible, really. And then a 1 star is just don't bother. Just don't even bother because you won't. Nobody will enjoy it. This was a middle of the road. It wasn't. There were moments of it that were pretty great, and there were moments that were pretty interesting, but for the most part, I found myself just very middle of the road, very like, this is a good book. And it's because I found it quite interesting because out of all the other books, I finished this one the quickest. Out of all of them, this is the one that I finished the fastest. It's not any shorter than the rest. It's not less detailed and less sort of compact in terms of a story. Like I said, everything is the same as what we've had before, but this one, I just flew right through it. I enjoyed myself, but yeah, it just was very middle of the road. And it just, because again, the Doctor doesn't feel like the Doctor. Like it was moments where I'd get into it and I'd be pulled out again because the Doctor didn't act or say the way the 10th Doctor would, basically. So that's kind of my first impressions. As for the sort of the story and the characters, as I mentioned, without going into sort of major spoilers, it's set on the Paradise Planet, Laylora, and the natives of this planet, they worship Laylora. They worship the planet as a god, and they are these creatures called the Witaku that, without going to spoilers of where they come from and their origins, they basically defend the planet from anything and everything that would cause the planet harm. And there are some twists and turns in this story, and you realize as to why is the planet alive, why the planet has a defense mechanism, and it kind of answers the question as to why for the past 15 years there's been earthquakes and tremors and droughts and storms, even before the Doctor and these other sort of humans get there. Because there's this other sort of side story where they have these humans explorers called on their ship called the Humphrey Bogart, and this ship crash lands onto the Paradise Planet. It turns out there's a doctor on board that's been, well, professor. It's interesting whenever Rose says "come professor," it just reminds me of what Ace used to say to the Seventh Doctor, Lester McCoy. She's like, "Oh, hi, Professor." He's like, "Call me Doctor." But anyway, that's just me being sort of Doctor Who nerd. But you find out that the professor in this ship has been looking for this planet for all of her life. She's an old lady now. She's been looking at it for a long, long time, and she and her crew crash land on this planet, and then from she crash lands on this planet, things start to get worse. A lot more tremors, a lot more Witaku are turning up and appearing and attacking, and basically, it seems like they're monsters at first, and they are monsters, but the reason that they do a lot of the things is just because that is it's in their nature to defend the planet. It's kind of like your body does. If you get sick, your body fights off the bacteria. Your body creates bits of bacteria to fight off the sort of evil bacteria in the body. Same sort of thing, really. It's a sort of what's name system? Oh, oh, immune system. Basically, it's immune system for the planet. It's the way for the planet to fight back whatever it is infecting it or making it worse. And that all side of it's quite interesting. The whole native and the way they are, and like they look human, but it turns out they've only got 3 fingers and pointy ears, and how they years and years ago, hundreds of years ago, they used to be a more advanced society, but at the same stage, they used to sacrifice people, and over time, they realized that technology isn't the way for them, and they wanted to go back to a sort of more simpler life. And the history behind them is quite fascinating. And that where it brings in Rose and the Doctor, how they're basically trying, how they, for most of the part of the story, that they're split up. Rose is in with the natives, in with the people that live on the planet, the Laylorians, and then you have the Doctor who is in the Humphrey Bogart, the crash ship, who's trying to figure out, and both are trying to figure out what's going on. The Doctor's trying to figure out why the Professor and the crew crash landed, why they're there. Then you get Rose, and she's trying to figure out what the Witaku are. She's trying to figure out how long that these problems have been happening for, and the twists and turns are quite interesting. And I was still hooked on the idea of, is this planet alive? Is Laylora an actual being? Is it a creature that we're going to see? Is it an alien? Is it not the planet just like an alien that's kind of persuaded the local populace to believe it's the planet and not an alien? You know, my brain was going on the adventure of trying to figure out, like, what is Layloria? Is it the planet or is it something else? And there are a lot of twists and turns in. Some of the twists are pretty good. Some of them, you know, you might see coming. One of them I did see coming quite quickly. Well, actually, tell a lie. The one twist, I kind of had a different theory of what I thought that twist was going to be. And I was kind of right, but I was wrong at the same aspect, which I can't really go into detail because I'll spoil it for somebody. Like I said, even though this book is still middle of the road for me, I still feel like people would enjoy it at the end of the day. I still feel people would, there might be somebody out there who might really, really like this one. And from looking at the reviews on Goodreads, there are people out there who will give it like 4s and 5s and say it's really, really good. You know, so there might be people out there, or people listen to this and go, you know what, I'll give it a go, and they might really like it. So I don't really want to talk about spoilers majorly. But yeah, so my overall thoughts before we get into the sort of the continuity is that even though it's very middle of the road, and even though that the 10th Doctor doesn't feel like the 10th Doctor, like generally you could slot any Doctor in here and it would work, it's still an interesting story and probably would have been good to have it as an actual episode. It reminds me of the classic era of Doctor Who, where you would get the first Doctor and you'd go see the Aztecs. Or you'd go into the deep jungle and you'd find these different tribes of people. And you know, it kind of reminded me of the classic side of Doctor Who, and I respect it for that because again, you don't really get a lot of these stories nowadays. A lot of the stories you get in modern Who, and I'm not talking about Who at the moment like Shutikawa. I mean, in the revival, there's not many that I can think of. Actually, I don't think there's really any. That I can think of that actually deals with things like this, with tribes and stuff like that. It's always very sort of futuristic, with aliens, or it's set on Earth or something like that. You don't really get the historicals much anymore, and you don't really get a lot of the classic adventures with like the Doctor lands in a jungle or in a forest, and next thing you know, he's been caught, or he's getting caught up in some sort of alien ritual or whatever. You don't really get a lot of those much anymore. So I respect it in that respect of we get to see a story that we haven't seen in a long time. And again, this is why I love the book so much, is the fact of you get to see things that the show wouldn't do, or the show can't do because of budget, or things like that. And I love it because, like I've said many, many times, Doctor Who is one of those theories that you could just go anywhere with it. It can branch out to practically anywhere. So to read these books and to literally be able to go anywhere. One thing I am going to comment, because again, we are at the very end of sort of these series. Like I've read all of the 9th Doctor books and I've read all of the beginning of the 10th and Rose books. I'd like to see a lot more villains. Like I like seeing villains that we don't know, but I'd like certain ones where like getting villains that we know of. I'm not talking about the Daleks or Cybermen, but like, for example, the next story with Martha is the Sting of the Zygons. You know, bring the Zygons back. I'd love to see the Savine. I haven't actually seen anything from the Savine since. Well, in terms of the books, was I think the second book with the 9th Doctor. But in terms of actually seeing the Savine, I think the last time I saw Savine was in the Sarah Jane Adventures. You know, so I like to see all the brand new aliens and brand new monsters. I love that. But part of me also is like, oh, let's bring back some like the Krillitane or something like that. Like bring back these monsters and creatures that are little to no seen or heard of, and see what goes on, you know, with our doctors. Chris Eccleston recently did an interview at I think it was Yorkshire Comic Con, or I think it was Yorkshire Comic. Anyway, he used to do a convention. Somebody asked him the question of like, what classical monster would you have liked to go up against that you didn't get a chance to go up against? And he basically said the Santarans. And then to think about it, yeah, I would have loved to see what the 9th Doctor would have been like. That Doctor in that mindset after coming off the time war, what his mind would have been like going up against a warring faction like the Santarans, because they are bred from test tubes to fight, to go to war. That is the long and short of their civilization. Their race is a warfaring civilization. So to see what the mind of the 9th Doctor and see how he would have taken the Santarans, how he would have dealt with them, and how he would have dealt with it, and how Rose would have sort of pulled him back and be like, you can't do this, can't do that sort of thing. It would have been interesting. So yeah, that's what I like about these books. You get to go places that you can't go. We get to go see the Doctor fight monsters that you probably didn't get a chance to see on the big screen. So for that, I really, really love them and enjoy them, and I highly recommend them to everybody. As for this book, like I said, overall, it's a 3 star. It's middle of the road. It's still pretty good, but it's not for me, because if the Doctor felt like the Doctor, it probably would have been a lot higher. It probably would have been a 4 star. It probably would have been pretty great if the Doctor felt like the Doctor all the way through. But like I said, still give it a go. Still give it a read. You might get more enjoyment out of it than I did, or it might not bother you at all. Generally, you might be like, you know what, my favourite Doctor's Peter Davidson. and I'll read this book and pretend that the Doctor is Peter Davison with Rose for some unknown reason. Again, that's quite possible, and that's something you can do. But again, let's be honest with ourselves. These books are written for children, so I'm sort of critiquing this as a book reviewer, as a sort of constant book reader, and that's what I'm judging it on with my brain. But I'm sure if a kid read this, it wouldn't bother them, to be honest. But yeah, so before we sort of get to the end, got to do my book sort of continuity. This is the part where I like to talk about the continuity moments that I noticed throughout the story that I noted down. So, start off, Rose asks if the SOS signal is a MERV alert, amongst other colours, said by the Ninth Doctor to be an intergalactic signal for danger in the TV episode The Empty Child. Then we got a reference to the Mox of Balhoun and the Ood are mentioned, which are seen in the episodes The End of the World and The Impossible Planet and the Satan Pit. Because actually, this story takes place after the Satan Pit, and the reason I knew that is because the Ood are mentioned in this story. And obviously, the Doctor doesn't meet the Ood. Well, the Doctor and Rose don't meet the Ood until sort of until the Satan Pit and the Impossible Planet. Next, Rose compares Whittaku to the werewolf from Tooth and Claw. Rose rummages through the Doctor's pockets and notices they are bigger on the inside, like the TARDIS. Dinah Noble later mentions this in the TV episode The Runaway Bride. Triskeliate crystals are used to power the Humphrey Bogart and are found in abundance on Leiloria, which is in the TV episode The Curse of Paladon. Rose tells Rez, one of the characters in the story, you can trust me on this, thinking of her father, a reference to the alternate world Peter Tyler, who used the phrase as his catchphrase in the TV episode Rise of the Cybermen. Also, Rose remembers their visit to the ancient Rome. This is quite interesting, and the reason it's quite interesting is the fact of they never went to Rome in the series. The only time they've ever been to Rome that I can find, apart from looking at Big Finish, obviously, was in the Stone Rose, and this is the first ever reference any of the books have done, and I mean any of them, from the Ninth Doctor all the way to this one. This is the first time that there's actually been a mention to one of the other books in this, that Rose was like, yeah, I remember my visit to ancient Rome, and that was in the Stone Rose, which was the first 10th Doctor and Rose story in novel. So I just thought that was really interesting. Like, that was the first ever reference to a separate book, and I hope it continues to go, because somebody who reads these and enjoys them and also reviews them, it'd be interesting to think of, like, well, let's see if the Doctor references to Martha of adventures with Rose, or if Martha mentions things from other books, because there's a lot of Martha books, which I'm looking forward to because I love Martha. So it'd be interesting to see if the authors of those books read the sort of first sort of books with Martha, and then we'll add that in, or that would be a cool little thing to mention. So I hope that's something that's a continuation. It's not just a one-off here. Also, Rose recalls she once hid in a cupboard in 10 Downing Street while the house fell apart around her. This was in the TV episode World War III with again the Celine, my favourite aliens. And then finally, the 8th Doctor saved a sentient planet in the episode in the book Grim Reality, which I haven't read that one, but yeah. So sentient planet. I had a feeling this planet was alive. But those are the sort of the continuity things that I found. I couldn't find any more. Maybe some things skipped my mind, but those are what I found as I was going through. As for sort of what happens next in terms of the Doctor Who novels and what I'm going to do. So the long and short of it is it's going to be a bit of a wait before I look into the Martha and... Sorry, I'm just on Goodreads at the moment trying to get the list up. Before I get to the Doctor and Martha, mainly because now that I've finished the books, I'm going to finish the series, either series 2. So I've got the 2 sort of episodes left, which is kind of the end of Rose's adventures, of Rose's journey. So it'll be a while before I sort of get to that, because I want to watch that. Then I'm going to go back and watch series 2 completely again, and then I'm going to review series 2 altogether. So that'll be coming hopefully later in the year. And then I'm probably going to take a break, because I don't actually have any of the Doctor and Martha books. I don't have any of them at the moment. I wanted to plan to collect a lot of them quickly, but I never got around to doing that. So yeah, there are a lot of them. If I got to count them here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. There's 13 of them, and that's not including any sort of short stories as well. And I feel like there's actually a short story that is set before the Sting of the Zygons. But yeah, because I don't actually have any, it'll be a while before I review them. But rest assured, I do have other Doctor Who novels that I've read in the past before, and I want to review them. I've got some Fourth Doctor novels that I want to review. I have a sort of compilation of short stories that might be interesting to look into. So there will be other Doctor Who book reviews coming, just not any sort of Doctor and Martha books coming anytime soon. So if anybody's waiting for that, I do apologise, but rest assured there will be other Doctor Who book reviews and other Doctor Who related topics coming this series this year. So nothing to worry about there. But yeah, I just want to say thank you to everybody who's been on this long journey with me, all the way from Stone Rose, Feast of the Drowned. I had a fantastic time with Feast of the Drowned. I still really love that book. It's probably one of my favourites out of the series so far. Feast of the Drowned was absolutely incredible by Stephen Cole. The Resurrection Casket was a lot of fun. It reminded me, it takes a lot of reference from like Treasure Planet and Treasure Island, but it reminded me so much of the Treasure Planet. I absolutely adored it. The Nightmare of Black Island was pretty fun. The Art of Destruction, the last one I read, I really, really enjoyed that one. And The Price of Paradise, so it's been a pretty good journey, and I'm glad. And I'm how can I explain it? It's been lovely. One thing I might do as well, though, because I do own all of the Ninth Doctor and Rose books, that, you know what, I might go back and actually review them as well. So if I've got some time, if it's going to take me a while to collect all the 10th Doctor and Martha books, because like I said, there's a lot, I'll probably go back and I'll review the sort of Clockwise Man, The Monster Inside, The Winner Takes All, The Deviant Strain, and Only Human of the 9th Doctor run. So that should be a lot of fun. So look forward to that. But like I said, I just want to say thank you to everybody. Everybody's been on this journey with me. Everybody's been listening to the reviews, any sort of book reviews I do, or if you just listen to the podcast, thank you very, very much. This is, I'm incredibly grateful. So thank you a lot. Before we go in today, 3 things I'm going to ask of you, like I asked you in the beginning. Make sure that you follow me on Twitter at Nerdstalgic_pod to be kept up to date on anything that I'm doing, watching, and reading. Number 2, if you listen to this on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Helps me out absolutely immensely. And finally, if you listen to this on Spotify, don't forget to leave a rating if you're listening on your phone. A star rating, 1 to 5 stars, helps me out greatly. So if you do all that, I'll be incredibly grateful. And that is all she wrote by the looks of it, of my notes. Yeah, that's everything. So once again, thank you very much for listening. I've been your host, Luke the Human. You've been listening to the Nerdstalgic podcast, and I will catch you all in the next one. Bye-bye.